Well, hi, everybody. I'm Don Stewart, and welcome to our second edition of Breaking News for this Thursday. It is the 25th day of September, 2025. And in the headlines, Donald Trump presents a Gaza peace plan to Muslim leaders at the UN. This is from the Jewish News Syndicate. Trump says the U.S. is close to some kind of deal after great meeting with regional leaders. This is from the Times of Israel. Netanyahu unleashes on Tucker Carlson, says he has no clue about history. And then Prime Minister Starmer says every working adult in Britain will require a government-issued digital ID card. What could possibly go wrong? All right, our first story basically is again piggybacking on what we said yesterday and this morning. Trump has a peace plan to the Muslim leaders. He gave it to them, and this story here seemingly presents what it is. So we're going to go with that right now. Again, this is always subject to change because you never know with the news, but it seems to be somewhat in the ballpark of what it is because we've got Trump now saying that some type of agreement may be taking place very soon. All right, U.S. Trump presents Gaza peace plan to Muslim leaders at the UN. Again, Jewish News Syndicate, which is a really solid source. U.S. media, U.S. Mideast envoy Witkoff expressed confidence that in the coming days we'll be able to announce some sort of breakthrough. U.S. President Donald Trump unveiled a peace plan for the Gaza and Middle East to leaders of several Muslim-majority countries during a meeting at the UN General Assembly in New York on Tuesday. Now, we're going to get an explanation of it to some degree. We had a very productive session. We presented what we call the Trump 21-point plan for peace in the Mideast and Gaza. I think it addresses Israeli concerns as well as the concerns of all the neighbors in the region. Reuters quoted U.S. Special Envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, as saying at the 15th Annual Concordia Global Affairs Summit in New York on Wednesday. We are hopeful, and I might say even confident, says Witkoff, that in the coming days we'll be able to announce some sort of breakthrough, he said. Trump met with leaders and officials from Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Egypt, Jordan, Turkey, Indonesia, and Pakistan to discuss the nearly two-year-long war between Israel and the Hamas terrorist group. According to Axios, it is the first time Trump has presented an American plan for ending the war in Gaza. Journalist Barak Ravid cited sources as saying that the president told the leaders at the meeting of the urgency of ending the war and that he was presenting the plan because every day that the war continues, Israel becomes more isolated internationally. The sources said the U.S. proposals were updated versions of ideas discussed over the past 6 months, building on concepts developed by Jared Kushner, that's Trump's son-in-law, and former British Prime Minister Tony Blair. According to Ravid's reporting, the main principles of the U.S. plan include this, all right, freeing all of the remaining hostages, a permanent ceasefire, gradual Israeli withdrawal from the Strip, a post-war plan for governance that does not include Hamas, a security force including Palestinians and soldiers from Arab and Muslim countries, funding from the Arab and Muslim countries for administration and reconstruction, and some involvement of the Palestinian Authority. Trump asked the Arab and Muslim leaders to support the plan, according to Ravid. The sources told him that the Arab and Muslim leaders presented their own conditions for supporting the plan, that Jerusalem will not annex parts of Judea and Samaria, will not control parts of Gaza or build Israeli communities in Gaza, will stop undermining the status quo on the Al-Aqsa Mosque, that's the Temple Mount, by the way, and that aid supplies to Gaza will immediately increase. The sources said that Trump agreed to not allow Israel to annex parts of Judea and Samaria, something that was first reported by Politico. We reaffirm our commitment to cooperate with President Trump and emphasize the importance of his leadership in order to end the war and open horizons for a just and lasting peace. This is a joint statement from the leaders of the 7 Arab and Muslim countries, which they wrote yesterday, Wednesday. Egyptian President al-Sisi issued a separate statement in support of Trump's plan. I appreciate the efforts of President Trump to stop the ongoing war in Gaza, in particular, and his pursuit of peace in the Middle East at large. I value the proposals he presented during his meeting yesterday in New York with a number of Arab and Islamic leaders, which I view as an important foundation upon which we can build further in the coming period to achieve peace, al-Sisi said. Trump told the Arab and Muslim leaders that the next step is a huge one is discussing the plan with Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu to secure his support. Netanyahu, by the way, is speaking to the UN tomorrow. Trump is expected to meet with Netanyahu on Monday at the White House. Again, as the article says, the premier will address the UN General Assembly tomorrow morning, Friday. All right, so Trump's going to be meeting with Netanyahu in the White House at the White House on Monday. We look forward to Israel's response. In the meantime, Trump believes that he is close to a deal because this is our next story. This is another new one that just came across the wires from the Times of Israel. Trump says the U.S. is close to some kind of deal in Gaza after a great meeting with the regional leaders. U.S. President Donald Trump says we're getting close to some kind of deal done in Gaza after his great multilateral meeting on Wednesday. Actually, it's Tuesday. Tuesday on the UN General Assembly sidelines with the leaders of 8 Arab and Muslim countries on the issue. Trump told reporters in the Oval Office during the public portion of his sit-down with visiting Turkish President Erdogan that a lot was determined in that meeting, during which Trump presented a 21-point plan for ending the war in Gaza and establishing a non-Hamas body to govern the Strip. I have to meet with Israel. They know what I want. I think we can get that one done. I hope we can get that done. A lot of people are dying, Trump says. We want to get the hostages back. Trump continues, we want all of them back at one time. Trump says, with steps regarding Gaza could be taken today without elaborating. Now, of course, you and I will have to wait and see what he has in mind, and more importantly, what's going to be the response of Israel and Hamas. Again, we will wait and see. All right, Netanyahu had something else to say about 12 hours ago, and that's he unleashed on Tucker Carlson, saying he has no clue about history. This is from the Israeli site JFeed at N12, and this is something we've been harping about here on Breaking News that Tucker Carlson's an anti-Semite, very vocal anti-Semite, and he really doesn't know much about history, but listen to this. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu strongly criticized Tucker Carlson's comments questioning Jewish ties to Israel. Carlson actually questioned the Jewish ties to Israel, calling him clueless about history while defending Israel's role in the West. He sharply criticized the former Fox News host, accusing the commentator of siding with America's enemies, which he is doing, by the way, and displaying a profound lack of historical knowledge. Actually, a profound lack of ignorance. The rebuke comes after Carlson publicly questioned the historical and ancestral ties of modern-day Jews to biblical Israel. In a conversation with filmmaker and author Dinesh D'Souza, Netanyahu directly addressed Carlson's remarks, dismissing his claims as non-historical. He has no idea, not just about Jewish history, but of history, Netanyahu said. The Jews dispersed from this land to Europe, to the Middle East, to other places, but we never forgot this land. We always said next year in Jerusalem. Netanyahu went on to assert that the Jewish connection to the land of Israel is deeply rooted and predates the modern presence of Palestinians. He highlighted the transformation of his ancient Israel into a juggernaut of technology and development and a democratic society in the face of persistent existential threats. All right, here's our response. The Jewish connection to Israel is uncontested when one looks at the evidence. In fact, in our update of our book, Ancient Mysteries of the Bible Solved, we will emphasize the recent rediscovery of the city of David in Jerusalem, which really leaves no doubt of the Jewish connection to the land of Israel for the last 3,000 years. We should have it updated in a few weeks. We'll keep you posted. In the meantime, in our book, 25 Signs, we're near the end. We have a couple of appendices 5 and 6. Who does the land belong to, and who are the Palestinians? We talk about the land belongs to the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and there's no such thing as the Palestinian people. They never have existed. They were people who came into Israel from other parts of the Middle East to work there, and they were made a special people by the enemies of Israel after the 48 War of Independence. And so we talk about all that. So please look at that. It's, again, in our book, 25 Signs. We're near the end. It's a free download from our website, Educating Our World. Finally, headline number 4. Every working adult in Britain will require a government-issued digital ID card under a dystopian plan set to be announced by Prime Minister Starmer. What could possibly go wrong? The idea of a mandatory identification system has long been advocated by Labour as a way to tackle illegal migration. But the proposal was fiercely opposed by civil rights campaigners. By the way, this is from the UK Daily Mail. It's fiercely opposed by civil rights campaigners who warn that it will erode civil liberties and turn the UK into a papers, please society. And of course, it's the famous line, in World War II, the Germans. Ausweis bitte, papers, please. With everybody, you have to give your papers wherever you go. Meanwhile, the polls show a majority of the public do not trust ministers to keep their personal data safe from cyber criminals. And why should they? Detailed proposals for what has been dubbed a Brit card could be announced by the Prime Minister as early as tomorrow. Under the scheme, anyone starting a new job or renting a property would be required to show their digital ID on an app so it could be automatically checked against a central database. Current employees and renters have the option of showing a number of different forms of physical ID, but there are fears that they're too easy to fake. Now, critics, of course, have dismissed the plan as a reheated version of Tony Blair's failed ID card scheme, which was axed amid concerns over privacy and soaring cost. But Sir Keyer's proposal will be subject to a consultation and are expected to require, the proper, support. Gracie Bradley of campaign group Liberty said a new plan was likely to be even more intrusive, insecure, and discriminatory than the Labor government's failed 2006 initiative. So they tried about 19 years ago, didn't work, and now they're trying to get in 2025. Meanwhile, Rebecca Benson of Big Brother Watch warned it will turn Britain into a papers, please society, and that's what we're afraid of. Tomorrow, Sir Keir is due to speak at the Global Progress Action Summit in London alongside Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese and Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney, two huge supporters of the Palestinian state, by the way. In fact, all three of them are there together, Australia, Canada, and the UK. Earlier this month, Sir Keir argued that digital IDs could play an important part in making Britain less attractive to illegal immigrants, illegal migrants, he calls them. He said things have moved on since the debate over ID cards during the last Labour government of the 2000s. He told the BBC, "We all carry a lot more digital ID now than we did 20 years ago, and I think that psychologically it plays a different part." Okay, we will see. Of course, all of this is our comments now is setting the stage for what Scripture predicts about the final Antichrist and his cohort, the false prophet, at the time of the end. Namely, everyone on the earth will not be able to buy or sell without his mark on the right hand of the forehead, the famous mark of the beast, as told in Revelation 13. So this is a precursor to all of that. These comes in small steps. But eventually, it will not be just in an app. It'll be something on people's body, the right hand and forehead. In other words, you can lose an app, you can lose, your phone or whatever it might be, or whatever, thing that you have to show your ID. But eventually, if you have one on your body, then again, you can always show it. And that's going to be the eventual idea. Okay, we explain all this in detail in our book, The Final Antichrist, The Coming Caesar. It's a free download from our website, Educating Our World, under the heading of Bible Prophecy. Now, again, as we see from the headlines, things are moving closer and closer every single day to what the Bible predicts about the time of the end. It's really amazing, isn't it? We are always amazed here every single day to watch all these things come together, but we are never surprised. We'll keep you posted. I'm Don Stewart. Thanks for watching. Until next time, as always, may the Lord richly, richly bless.